we're going to be looking at images. Images are an important aspect to add to your websites because they add a lot of dimension and interest. In the beginning, the web was just text, and it was really kind of boring. Fortunately, it wasn't too long before the ability to embed images inside web pages was added. In order to put an image on a web page, we use the image element. This is an empty element, meaning that it has no text content or closing tag. In order for the image element to function correctly, you must include the source attribute. The source attribute contains the path that points to the image that you want to embed within your web page. This can be a relative or absolute URL. It's the same way as href attribute values function in an A element. For right now, we'll be working with absolute URLs. Image elements are sometimes referred to as replaced elements. This is because the element's content and size are defined by an external resource, like the image itself, not by the contents of the element itself. Before we get into using images, it is worth mentioning that most images are copyrighted. Do not display an image on your web page unless you own the image, you have received explicit written permission from the image's owner, or you have ample proof that the image is in fact in the public domain. Furthermore, you can purchase images to use on your website through a plethora of stock image resources that are available on the web. Copyright violations are illegal and unethical. In addition, never point your source attribute to an image hosted on someone else's website that you don't have permission to link to. This is called hot linking. This is basically stealing someone else's bandwidth, and it's illegal. In addition, it can slow down your page and leaves you with no control over whether the image is removed or replaced with something else. In order to incorporate an image onto your website, you need to make sure that you're using the appropriate image format. The following are the types of images that you can use on your web page. They are JPEG, which is a good choice for most photographs, PNG or PNG, which is also a good choice for photographs, but it tends to make the file size a little larger. It is worth noting that the PNG or PNG format is the only format that has the ability to display an image with alpha transparency. Then we have GIF or GIF. This is a good choice for simple images. Think of line art type drawings or logos. The GIF file format can also contain animations. And then we have SVG. This stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. This is a vector image format, and it is great for images that you want to be able to resize and retain all of the quality. A little bit later on in this course, we will be delving into these various image formats and talking in depth about the pros and cons of using each type. But for now, I just wanted to introduce you to the web-friendly image types. Let's go into our code and incorporate an image. In order to add an image to your website, you're going to use the IMG tag. And as I mentioned, you have to put the SRC attribute. The IMG tag by itself is simply going to display a broken image, like what you see right here. So what I'll do is I'll add the source attribute, or SRC. I'm going to put the equal sign, and then I'll put my quotation marks. And now what I need to do is I need to specify the path of where my image is located. In order to add images within CodePen, you're going to have your images be externally hosted, or it is possible that you can use Unsplash, which is a source of freely usable images. So these images are not copywritten, and you can use them without worrying about any sort of repercussion. There are a couple of ways that you can incorporate an image from Unsplash into your website. One of the easiest ways is to go down to the Asset tab down here at the bottom of CodePen. When you click this, it's going to open up your Asset panel. Now, the first pane that you look at is going to explain that uploading your own images is a pro feature. So we are currently using the free plan, and this is not included in the free plan. But with the free plan, we can use these free design assets. So if we go into the color panel, this is going to list a bunch of colors. This is a quick and easy way that you can just click on the color and it will copy the hex value to your clipboard, so then you can use that later in your code. If we go to the photo panel, you can see that it's going to load a bunch of different photos. You can even search for a photo of a specific type. So if I search for eel, it's going to bring up a bunch of pictures of eels. And if I don't see the one I like, I can click See More, and it will continue to load a plethora of pictures. If you don't see exactly what you want, you might want to modify your search criteria slightly and see if it brings any better sorts of results. So when I write eels, I actually get different results from when I simply write eel. Once you find an image that you want to use on your website, you'll click the image and it's going to copy the URL to the clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and close this pane. So if I want to use that copied information, I'll go to the source value, and all I have to do is press Command or Control V, which is the shortcut for paste. Now, once you do this, the URL is going to be a little bit long and unwieldy. You'll also notice that by default, the picture is probably going to be enormous. These images are high-res images. Unsplash is going to serve up these high-resolution images. There are a couple of ways that we can rein these images in. I'm going to do undo, and we're going to go back to the asset pane. And if I use the little pull-down menu over one of these images, you'll see that it actually is going to give me some additional choices. So I can copy the URL for the full version of the image, or I can copy the URL for a small version of the image. There's some additional choices here, but these are the two that we're going to be interested in using. So I'm going to copy the URL small this time, and then we'll close this pane. I'll go back to the source attribute value and I'll paste. And now when the image is loaded, it's much smaller. It's actually adding a little bit of code that's resizing the image down. We'll talk about resizing images in the future. This is a great way that you can easily incorporate imagery quickly and efficiently into your project websites. Now, let me finish the tag. In addition to the source attribute, we also want to add another attribute. This is the alt attribute. The alt attribute value is supposed to be a description of what the image is. This is used for situations where the image cannot be displayed, or it takes a long time to render because of a slow internet connection. If a visually impaired user comes to your website and they're using a screen reader, the alt tag is what will be read out to them. The alt tag is actually very helpful for most users. What if there was a problem with the path to your image? Well, if you have an alt tag, at least you'll have a description that is going to show what happens with the image. Search engines also use the alt tag. They can match the alt text with search queries, and it can also help with SEO, search engine optimization, on your website. In order to decide what text you should use within your alt tag, I recommend that you use a brief, succinct description of what the picture is. So in this case, I'm just going to make my alt attribute. I'm going to put the equal sign, and I'm going to say moray eel. You don't have to write full sentences or paragraphs. You can just have a brief description that is describing what that image would be in case the image doesn't show up. And remember, the image tag is an empty tag, so we self-close the image tag like this. Now, if for some reason the path to the image was incorrect, so I'm just going to get rid of the M on com, you can see that our alt tag is showing up. So it's going to show a broken image icon, but the alt tag will show up. This is why alt tags can be useful for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and add another image. I've gone ahead and hosted the image, so instead of using Unsplash, I'm going to use my own path to display this next image. Once again, you need to include the entire address, just like we did with links. We have to have the https://. This is if it is a absolute link, which is what I'm going to use right now. Now you can see the second image that I've placed on my page. Once again, I'm going to add an alt tag. This time I'll be a little bit more descriptive. and then I'll self-close the tag. As you can see, the images display side by side. If there is room within the browser window, they will display side by side. The reason why is because image tags are inline elements, so they do not automatically force that line break. If I wanted to have these images on their own line, then I would need to wrap them inside a block level element. So if I take the first image and place it inside of a paragraph tag, you'll now see that the images are going to stack on top of each other. This second image is still an inline element, but because the first image is nested within the paragraph, it is forcing that hard return, and the images will appear on top of each other. In addition to the source and the alt tags, there are a couple of more attributes that you can add to your images. Some of the ones that you might find helpful right now are the width and height. So if I go ahead and add width, and I'm going to go ahead and specify width equals, and then inside quotation marks, I'm going to place the value, and the value is just going to be 200 pixels. You can see that the second image of the eel has now shrunk down. It is worth noting that even though I only specified width, the image shrunk proportionately. It's respecting the image's original aspect ratio. So I don't have to try to figure out what the aspect ratio is for that image. I can just resize it, and the browser is going to take care of dealing with the appropriate height value. Now, if you go ahead and add a height value that is not proportionate, your image is going to appear distorted like this. This is not recommended. If you resize your images this way, they tend to look odd. Users are going to feel like there's something wrong with the imagery that is appearing on your website. So generally, I would just plug in one of these values. It doesn't really matter which one you plug in. The other one is just going to adjust and keep whatever value it needs to, so the aspect ratio is correct. Now, in addition to scaling an image down, you might be tempted sometimes to scale an image up. While this is possible, it is not recommended. What happens when you scale an image up is that the image will become blurry and fuzzy, and you're going to lose quality. You're starting with an image that is a specific size. When you start to scale it up, you're going to lose information. If your ultimate intention is to have a larger version of this image, the best thing for you to do is to go back to your image editing application and resize the image there, or find a different image that has the appropriate aspect ratio that you need for your needs. So now you have an introduction with how you can work with images. I've showed you how you can incorporate images from Unsplash and from images that you may have uploaded to your own website. We'll learn how to do that in a future lesson, but I did want to show you this. We'll also be working with relative paths, and that will be coming up very shortly. But for now, this is how you need to add images. I did want to point out that you can go to the Unsplash website, and they have all sorts of images that are free for you to use. So if you needed an image of a swimming pool, you could simply search for the swimming pool, and you could find a lot of images of pools. Once you find the right one, if you go ahead and click on it, you can download it. So in this case, if you wanted to download this and possibly manipulate it in some way, you would be able to do that. When you choose to download, you can choose the actual size that you want. And of course, if you have an image editing program, you could always download a large size and then manipulate it in some way. Another website that will allow you to get images for free is called Pixabay. And this is a little bit similar. In order to get an image, you will need to join the community, and you can sign up and it's completely free. You would go ahead and walk through the requirements. So these are both great resources for you to get free images to use within your web projects.